Okay, guys, let's start. So, starting with a bit of an announcement while we're at the beginning of the video as well, everyone is gonna know about that. We're gonna postpone the midterm to week 10. This introduction file on Moodle, expected midterm in week 9, right now is week 7. Okay? So we're going to postpone it to week 10. This week we're going to finish this chapter on demand and supply. And for another 2 weeks, that's week 8 and 9, we're going to talk about another chapter, elasticity. And then week 10 is going to be your exam, and I'll let you know what's going to happen on the exam a little later. Some other day, some other week. Okay? So, what are we going to do today? We're going to finish with market equilibrium. Okay. So, equilibrium, let's just start with a general meaning, right? Is basically another word for a balance, right? Another word for a balance. Okay. So it's a balance between demand, all the buyers on the market, and supply, all the sellers on the market. Okay. So basically, market equilibrium is a situation when the price balances all the buying plans and all the selling plans. Okay? Again, if it's hard to read on the board, I'm reading everything that's on the board, so you perhaps might just listen. Okay? We also have equilibrium price. It's that price, okay, where quantity demanded equals quantity supply. Remember last week we said that demand as a function between price and quantity demanded is just some sort of mathematical function, right? Supply similarly is just another sort of mathematical function between price and quantity supplied. Perhaps a positive function for supply, perhaps a negative function for demand, as demand is downward sloping. Right? So we simply have two functions, right? Something like y equals f of x, and something like w equals g of m or whatever, g of x, actually also y. Two different functions, right? Basically, equilibrium price is that price at which quantities are equal. We can have any sort of function for demand. For example, let's say demand is a straight line, easy to deal with straight lines. Let's say demand has a function of price equals, let's say, 20 minus 2 times Q. Is that a straight line or is that a curve? How do you guys think? I think it's a straight line. And let's say the supply has a function where P equals, let's say, 4 plus 2 multiplied by Q, for example, right? Just a straight line demand, just a straight line supply, right? And for different prices, quantity demanded will be very different. So here's the demand. These are the quantities. These are the prices. For different prices on the demand, the actual quantity demanded will be different. Same for supply, right? Supply will look like this. That's demand, that's supply, quantity, price. For different prices over here, the actual quantity supplied will be different, right? So equilibrium price is simply the price where these quantities are the same, right? So we just want to find one price where quantities are the same. So we just want to solve these two straight lines. It's an equation, right? Something equals something else. That is an equation. We just want to solve these two equations as a system of equations, right? So we just solve these two together. Solve these two together, that will give you a point where two lines intersect. Anytime when you solve a system of equations together, the solution gives you x and y, or in this case q and p. The solution gives you the point because x and y combination on the chart is just a point, right? For example, if x equals 3 and y equals 17, it's just a point. So the solution will give you a point where any curves, they intersect. In this case, the straight lines intersect. So what we're going to do for the market equilibrium is we're actually going to bring together demand and supply. We talked about each of them separately last week, right? Now we're just going to marry them together, put them together, see where the charts, the curves meet. And similarly, equilibrium quantity. Yes. Is the quantity of the product bought and sold, because if somebody is buying, that must mean somebody is selling, otherwise whom are you buying from, right? So of course equilibrium quantity is the quantity of the product bought and sold at equilibrium price or at the market equilibrium. Either way is fine, right? And let's just use this example. So, there are a few ways to solve two equations together, right? Or there are a few ways to solve a system of equations. Let's just stick to one way so that we don't get some of you confused if you forgot some of it from high school, right? The easy method that I quite like is just substitution, right? Instead of addition of the equations, we can just use substitution. Well, what we can do is we can logically think that, well, if P equals this, and we have P over here, then instead of that P, I can just put all of that. That will give me one equation with only Q as the unknown. So would that give me 4 plus 2Q equals 20 minus 2Q. Next thing you have to do, as you see I'm going slowly just in case to make sure everybody's on the same page, right? Next thing that you probably want to do is bring everything that has Q in it to one side of the equation, bring everything that doesn't have Q in it to another side of the equation, and we should remember that when we bring things from one side of the equality sign to the other, yes, we change the sign. right? So for example, I want to keep everything with Q on the, let's say, left-hand side, and everything else, let's say, on the right-hand side. Either way is fine. So I want to bring this over here over the sign of equality. So its sign changes, that becomes 2Q plus 2Q. That, of course, is 4Q, right? And I'm going to change sign over here, which is plus, to negative, because I'm going to drop it on the other side of the equality sign. That's going to be 20 minus 4, which is, of course, 16. Right? And, of course, Q is equal to 4, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. So the equilibrium quantity is 4, right? And now we need to find price. Just plug this quantity either into this point or into this point, doesn't matter. Both should give you the same answer for the equilibrium price. So that should be 4 times 2 is 8 plus 4 is 12. I think so. Okay. So let's just use this. Doesn't matter which one you use. That's going to be 2 plus, what is it? 4. 2 times 4. Equilibrium price is 12. So I can put those two together on a chart. Okay. Now we are marrying them two together. Demand and supply, they go together on the same chart. Quantity, price. Let's do things accurately. So let's actually count the values here. Let's say 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's say this is going to be 20. So each tick is 2. And I gotta go down to how much? I gotta go down to something like 10, yes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say each tick here is 2, so that's 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's 10. Yes. So, how do I put this equation on the chart? How do I put this equation on the chart? First, I want to recognize that it's a straight line. For a straight line, only 2 points are enough to draw that line, because you can just connect the ruler through the 2 points. So what are the points I want to choose on this straight line? I guess 0 is easiest to calculate. So what if the price is 0? Then this should be 10 to make all of this equal to 0, right? So if the price is 0, we're over here, it means that we're on the horizontal axis. Q is going to be equal to 10 over here. Now I'm going to try the other 0. What if Q is equal to 0, meaning that I'm over here? If Q is equal to 0, P is going to be equal to 20, right? So a point over here, that's enough. We just connect 2 points for a straight line, that's enough. And that's our demand. Remember to label everything. If you forget to label anything on the exams, that's a deduction of some points, right? Because whenever you show anything, you need to try to remember to label everything. What is that line? What is this line? What is it that you're showing me? I don't know, right? 0 here. If this is 0, if price is 0, this should be negative. Okay, that's not a great idea. Let's stay in the positive territory. Of course, I can use negative numbers. It doesn't matter, I can just connect a point here with a point here. That's going to be a straight line, it's fine, but okay. Let's stay in the positive area. Let's put 0 here. When quantity is 0, price is equal to 4. 4, isn't it? Yeah. So that's over here. Right? So the supply goes through this point, supply curve. And when price is negative, right? When price is 0, Q is actually negative 2 over here. So supply curve, I can connect these 2 points. I don't want to deal with negative numbers for now, doesn't really matter, right? So I know it's going to go somewhere here. Let me choose some other round number to find the answer for another point. Any round number should be fine, right? Let's say 10. If I put 10 for Q, that gives me 24 for P, right? So that's 22, 24, right? So a point somewhere here, I guess. Any 2 points, or I could have chosen any other number for Q. So connect this point and that point, right? That's supply, and there's the equilibrium as we calculated. The price is 12, that's our calculation, right? And the quantity is 4. Okay. So I'm going to move this D letter so that we can see things clearly. This is demand. So by all of this calculation, what we did is we actually found that the location of this point where demand and supply curves they meet. Okay. So far so good. Any questions? Right. What else do I need to talk about? Right. Okay. Market adjustments whenever the market is not in an equilibrium. Right? So for example, let's say we have a market over here. So let's say this should be our equilibrium price. So let's say we're looking at the same market, our price is 12, and then something happened, everybody wants to buy it. I don't know, maybe there was an advertisement with Madonna together with Justin Timberlake wearing these same shoes or whatever, I don't know. Everybody wants to buy it. Everybody wants to buy it. Demand increases, right? Remember that preferences, right? Demand increases, our intersection is at a higher price, right? So that's that higher price. Imagine we now zoom out a little bit from that chart over here, right? So we were originally at 12. Let's say 12 is over here, right? At that price, right, the quantity supplied was only 4. Let's say the supply curve didn't change, right? At the price of 12, only 4 units are ready to be sold, right? But because now everybody wants these shoes after the new clip, right? At this price of 12, so many people want to buy it. You can't imagine how many. 4, 3, and 3, that looks like 10. You can't imagine how many, that is 10. 10 people want to buy it at the price of 12. Or maybe it's in thousands of people, I don't know, it doesn't matter, right? So, that's how the market, haven't finished. I was going to say that's how the market adjusts, we haven't talked about that yet. So, let's say the current price is 12. After this new music clip, everybody wants to buy it, demand has shifted, but the price hasn't adjusted yet. Okay, how are we going to adjust to the market equilibrium? Whenever the price is not at equilibrium, there is either shortage of the product or surplus of the product. In this case, whenever the price is below the equilibrium price, the quantity that people demand, we call it quantity demanded, right, is greater than the quantity supplied. So we have a shortage. There isn't enough. There aren't enough pairs of shoes for all who want to buy them, right? So in this case, we have a shortage. Okay. quantity demanded minus the quantity supplied. In our case, that's going to be equal to 6, for example, right? So this distance is the shortage. I'm going to show it with this arrow. So whenever the price is not at equilibrium, there will be either shortage or surplus. Whenever the price is below equilibrium, quantity demanded will exceed quantity supplied, so there will be a shortage. Then how about the market adjustment? Well, if there is a shortage, so many people want to buy them. Let's say this is in thousands, so 10,000 people want to buy these shoes, right? But only 4,000 pairs are available for sale, right? Not enough for everyone, so instead of paying 12,000 for the pair, maybe some people who are really crazy about Madonna and Timberlake and I don't know whatever, Timberland or Timberlake, I already forgot. There's a shop, Timberlake or Land, and there's a singer. I don't really follow any kind of contemporary music, so I'm just trying to make up some examples. I forgot the names even. Anyway, some people will be like, hey, there aren't enough shoes. Please give me that pair, and I'll give you. It's not me. It's some different who. I'll give you 14,000, not 12. Some people will start bargaining with the seller, right? So that's gonna push the price higher towards the equilibrium. Okay? Because there are more buyers than sellers at this price is gonna push price higher. Okay, and on the other side, if, let's say, for whatever reason, right, we jump, so we just imaginary situation, unlikely to just jump like that, but let's say we look at the price of 18. Actually, I don't know, is it, doesn't matter, let's call it 28. Because we don't have the new equation for the demand curve, I don't really know what is the equilibrium. But say call it 28, whatever, doesn't matter. Let's call this 12. That's quantity supplied. At this very high price, so many people want to sell these shoes. And at this very high price, not many people actually want to buy them. Let's call this 3. Right? So this is quantity supplied now because that comes from the supply curve, right? That's the quantity where supply curve is pointing to at the price of 28, at the price that we are considering now. And that is quantity demanded. Okay. So whenever quantity supplied exceeds quantity demanded, then we have a surplus. Okay, which is of course equal to quantity supplied minus quantity demanded. That difference, so I'm going to show it over here with this arrow. This distance, or this difference, is a surplus. In our case, that's equal to 9. And for the adjustment, right? There are so many shops that are full of those shoes to be sold, but they can't sell them because there are only few buyers. Only 3,000 pairs are probably going to be sold in this city this week, but 12,000 are ready to be sold. Then some sellers will start to give some different discounts, buy 5, get 6 or something, I don't know. Some sort of discounts pushing the price down. So a surplus generally pushes the price down towards the equilibrium. A shortage generally pushes the price up, yes, towards the equilibrium. Okay, easy enough, but it's really, it's a very simple model. Pretty simple, right? Nothing really tricky that I explained to you, but this is probably the most important model in all of economics. A law can be explained by this model, right? for example, I don't know if you heard, in many of the Western countries right now, a lot of used cars are much more expensive than they were a year or two ago. Why? Any ideas? How do you guys think?
A lot of used cars.
Yeah.
Income is lower.
The prices are much more expensive. Income is lower, so your argument is because a lot of people lost income due to the pandemic. Instead of buying a new car, they're going for a second-hand car.
Yeah.
Perhaps they should go for public transport then, right? The thing is, I'm just trying to give you an example how this can be really useful in explaining what's happening in the real world. Because of the shortage in semiconductors, shortage of delivery clogs all over the world, shortage of semiconductors, all of those semiconductors go into different kinds of appliances, including new cars. All those new cars have fancy screens in the middle of the dashboard and everything, right? So nowadays, there is a backlog of car production. For example, back in a few months ago, there were some announcements that, I don't know, for example, Subaru, I guess there might have been other announcements by similar manufacturers, but I was kind of interested in the Subaru, and they temporarily closed one of their Japanese factories back in middle of this year. So just some examples, and I'm sure there are more examples. I don't follow all the news, right? The reason for that was the shortage of semiconductors to put into those cars. They don't have enough of those delivered, right?
Well, why was there a shortage of semiconductors?
Because of the pandemic, a lot of the factories closing down, plus because of the backlog with this evergreen clogging the Suez Canal. Around 17% or so of global shipping goes through that canal. So while one ship is stuck there, hundreds of ships are also waiting.
Yeah.
So everything is just delayed. Yes.
It was only for about 5 days, 4 days.
Was it 4 days? I don't really remember.
That long. I think it was shorter than that.
You think so? Perhaps, but I don't remember the details. But a lot of backlog of things. It's really interesting. So the supply of new cars has dropped, right? Because manufacturers can't produce fast enough. They don't have enough chips to put into those cars, right? The supply of new cars has dropped, right? What happens if the supply drops? Let's see. This is demand for you, right? This is supply for you, right? So I said, what is demand supply? Supply drops, meaning that it shifts to the left. We talked about decreasing supply translating into a shift to the left on the chart, right? Here's the equilibrium price, right? What happens to equilibrium price? It goes up. Any new cars are more expensive, right? And if you can't buy a new car, perhaps a lot of people will switch to a second-hand car, right? So demand for second-hand cars probably increases, pushing prices higher, right? We really can use this model to explain a lot of things. So it's a very useful model. Perhaps if there is only one thing you learn from 2 semesters in economics, then the demand and supply should be that thing, really. That is like the bread and butter of economics. For example, nowadays you might have heard that the wages are at some of the highest levels over the last several decades in the US, right? Why might that be the reason? Well, there aren't many people who are going to interviews right now. If you might have heard from the news over the last several months, companies even provide some monetary incentive, even give you some cash just to go for the interviews.
So that's because they got used to all these government subsidies.
Exactly. But we can look at the labor market with the same model, although it's very, very simple, right? If nobody is going for the interviews, those people supply labor, right? So the supply of labor dropped. What's going to happen to the price of labor, which is wages, right? It's going to increase, right? So just some examples that this is a pretty simple model, but you can apply it to so many things happening in the world, right? It's really, really, really interesting, very interesting. Yeah. So there's that. What else do I have to talk about? Yeah, let's have an example, I guess. Yes, let's have an example. Example before we go for a break. Yes, almost time for a break. Yes. So let's have another example. Demand has the following form: price equals, let's say, 280 whatever minus 4Q. Supply price equals whatever, let's say 20 plus 3Q. Okay. If price equals let's say 100 anyway, how much is the shortage or surplus? And secondly, find the equilibrium price and quantity. Okay. So can you guys try that? So you can start first so that you can see if you can do it. And I will start on this maybe 30 seconds later. So you can also check if you're like stuck. If you can see if you can do it on your own, that can be kind of useful, yeah. It doesn't ask you to make a chart, so you don't have to make a graph, but if you want to see how it looks like, it's pretty easy. You can just look at this number, right? And that will be on the vertical axis, 280, right? Let's say this is 280. Okay? If you want to find this number, just divide 280 by 4. 280 divided by 4 is it 70? Okay, so that will be your demand function. You don't have to draw this. The questions don't ask for that, but I'm just explaining, right? Again, this is going to be your point on the vertical axis, 20. So maybe somewhere here. And just going up at the slope of 3. Right, up at the slope of 3. So if you look at 50, the slope of 3 is 150. So by the time we reach to 50 on Q, if you put 50 here, that's 150 and 20, 170. So 170, I'm not sure where is 170, maybe somewhere here. So something like that for the supply curve, right? Then the price of 100. You just put 100 here, see how much is the quantity supplied. If this is 100, right? If this is 100, okay, let's do it in a written form so you can see everything. plug price equals 100 to both of these. That's going to give you 100 equals 280 minus 4Q. So quantity demanded is 180 divided by 4 is 45, right? Thanks. 45. And for the supply, it gives you 100 equals 20 plus 3Q. So 80 equals 3Q. Quantity supplied is 80 divided by 3, which is, I also don't know. You don't know, I don't know, maybe somebody else can help us. How much is it? 200? No, 80 divide.
Oh, divide, sorry. 26.
26.67, let's say, right? So quantity demanded exceeds quantity supplied. Do I have a shortage or a surplus? Shortage. And is our price actually below equilibrium or above equilibrium? It's below, right? Because we have a shortage. So the price of 100 is somewhere below equilibrium, even though we don't really know where is that equilibrium yet. We know the 100 is below that because we have a shortage. Right? So this is 26.67. This is 45. And that shortage equals 45 minus 26.67, which is, somebody help me here, 18.3, is it over? 18.33. Okay? So that's the answer to the first question, right? And to answer the second question, again, we can just do the substitution, right? Substitute this over there, right? So that's going to give you 20 plus 3Q equals 280 minus 4Q. So bring everything with a Q to the right side. That will be 7Q equals 280. Bring everything without Q to the other side. So that's minus 20 is 260, right? And Q is equal to, you guys can help me, 260 divided by 70. Oh, by 7. 38? 37 point, is it? 1.4, yes. Okay, so that's equilibrium quantity. Again, the question doesn't ask for a chart, but we can put it over here. That's 37.14. Now we can find the price. Put this quantity either here or here, doesn't matter. The answer should be the same. Let's say 20 plus 3 times 37.14. That's going to be what? 111 131 point 42. Okay, that's equilibrium price. The answer to question number 2. It's over here. Okay? Questions? Let's go for a break.